Hey there, I'm Mr. McFacepunch. You can call me Chainsaw. Let's talk about Dragon's Dogma 2 DLC. So, I've wanted to make a Dragon's Dogma 2 DLC video for a while, but honestly, they haven't given me a good reason to do it until now. So, last week I made a video covering the second anniversary art, just like a real quick emergency video, like no super big details, just like, hey, this is a secret note in there, this is what it said. Holy crap, DLC might be real. Uh that's that was good, that was fine, but now that the dust is sort of settled, people have been talking, I figured it would be good to make a new video and more than just the note, more than just the second anniversary art, we're going to talk about why DLC was likely before, why it stopped being as likely, why it is now likely again. We're going to do more in-depth coverage of the second anniversary art, really think about what the stuff in there means, and then we're going to ponder what we might see in a DLC based on what we already see in the game. So why it was likely before, uh, they had two different surveys, like right after launch, asking what kind of DLC people wanted to see. Generally, you don't ask what kind of DLC people want if you don't plan on giving it to them. Generally. Beyond that, it crushed financial goals. I know there's this weird thing in the community where a lot of people think that it was some sort of financial failure. It definitely was not. Now, it sold 3 million copies within the first month, 4 million as of November 5th, 2025. So, for some games, that's good, and for some games, that's not good. For Dragon's Dogma 2, that is very good because Capcom is really good about releasing their financial documents and stuff like that so that investors or whatever are up on what's going on. And before Dragon's Dogma 2 was officially announced, in their financial documents, they said that they had an unannounced title that was expected to sell 1 million units. That unannounced title was Dragon's Dogma 2. So Dragon's Dogma 2 was only expected to sell 1 million copies, and it tripled that in the first month. So Dragon's Dogma 2 crushed it in terms of like what they were expecting. Like it didn't sell as good as Elden Ring. It didn't have to. It's not Elden Ring. It's Dragon's Dogma. It gets the scraps from Capcom and it makes it work as good as they can. So with what they were given, they were only expected 1 million copies sold. They tripled it in the first month. Huge financial success. Then because of that, Capcom started categorizing Dragon's Dogma as a major brand. So obviously, you don't call something a major brand if you don't plan on continuing the brand. Like if they're just put out Dragon's Dogma 2 and they're like, yeah, actually we're making nothing Dragon's Dogma ever again. Sorry guys, goodbye forever. That doesn't make sense. It's a major brand. They're going to do something with it eventually. Now that doesn't necessarily mean DLC, but it kind of points in that direction. And then finally, there are hints in the game that look like setup for DLC. Stuff like the buried spell seal doors, but we'll talk more about that later. The point is, everything was pointing toward an eventual DLC. But then it kind of stopped feeling as likely. In fact, most of the community right now, even with what we currently have, they're still like, nah, I'll never believe anything. Like, not until it's in my hand, and then probably not even then. One, they were too silent for too long. Dark Arisen was announced 5 months after the launch of Dragon's Dogma, way back in 2012, and Dark Arisen released 11 months after launch. Meanwhile, here we are 2 years later, and we haven't seen an update since June of last year, and not any sort of meaningful update for a lot longer than that. So, of course, like, silence could be like to maintain surprise, but it definitely doesn't feel like that when you're not even like putting little updates, because there's a lot of like little updates that it feels like Dragon's Dogma 2 could use little tweaks here and there. Uh, you would think that they would be putting those out, at least, trickling them, but no, they haven't done anything for a long time. And a lot of games nowadays, they get like whole content roadmaps that let you know, like, this is our title, this is what we're doing with it. And for Dragon's Dogma 2, it's just been silence for like way too long. Then there was the great Capcom exodus to Lightspeed Studios. We lost Hideaki Itsuno. Some people have taken to dogging on him because they don't actually like his vision or whatever. I guess, like, it's not for everybody, but I like what he was doing. But he's the guy who literally birthed Dragon's Dogma. It's his brainchild, and we lost him. So a lot of people are dooming over that. We lost Daigo Ikeno. He's the art director for Dragon's Dogma, and he was actually a lot more involved with a lot more than people think. He's not just Mr. Draw Pictures man, although he does draw pictures and he's very good at it. That's not all he is. Uh, in the 10th anniversary video where Dragon's Dogma 2 was announced, Daigo Ikeno let it be known that the reason you can climb monsters in Dragon's Dogma is because it was his request. He said, if we're going to make a big game with big monsters, you have to be able to climb them because I don't want to just chop at their toes. So Daigo Ikeno, like, he fashions a lot of the setting. He's not just draw pictures man. He really directs the course of the games. And we lost him. And also we lost Bingo Morihashi, who is the lead scenario writer. And this one is the scariest for me because everything that Bingo Morihashi touches, like, it's all very consistent. Like, a lot of people, because they don't understand most of the story of Dragon's Dogma, they don't understand a lot of the symbolism, but it's all incredibly cohesive and very, very consistent. So losing that on every project where he's further away from it, that kind of starts slipping, and it starts with Dark Arisen. There's like weird differences between like what the Dragon's Bargain is supposed to be and what it's presented in Dark Arisen, but it can sort of be forgiven because, like, Dark Arisen, the whole story is set up around exceptions to rules. So, like, a rule being broken is like, okay, like, it's fine. It doesn't mess with the writing too much. But anyway, we lost three big hitters, three like heads of the project, and man, that hurts. That's scary. But they all had people working beside them that could be able to take their place. And certainly, all of them are professionals. Capcom should have had at least some notice of their departure and opportunity to fill the gaps. But still, those are big shoes to fill. And it's good reason to be worried. I just don't think it was ever like the nail in the coffin, we're never getting DLC kind of thing. But it does add a chance that even if they were planning for a DLC, with all the surveys, the hints in the game, it being a major brand, like all of that, even though that was pointing towards DLC, this is enough of a change that you could see that making Capcom change their mind. So then everything's kind of up in the air. Are we getting DLC? Are we not? It really looks like it's just been abandoned. But why it looks likely now is because of the second anniversary artwork. And at first, it's just boring. Like, there's not... okay, we got a bunch of in-game assets. They're all hanging out in the bar. Cool. Thanks, you remembered it. But when I made the brief emergency video, the note, there's this guy in the back, there's this weird little medallion thing over here. So, like, all I talked about was the note, but now we're gonna really dig deep now, and like, hopefully, I can help you guys to understand exactly why this makes DLC look so much more likely. All right, because I missed it before, let's start with the new guy in the back, okay? So this guy here, we've not seen him ever before. Since the last video, people have like dug into the files of the game, and this guy is not there. This equipment is not there. This hairstyle is not there. This is a new character. Okay, you don't just design and model a brand new character for no reason. He's going to be used for something. And then another thing that people point out is that he's surrounded by Meisters. Surely we got Magic Archer Meister, we got Sorcerer Meister, we got Warrior Meister, we got Trickster Meister, we got Mystic Spearhand Meister. So yeah, like it seems like all the Meisters are in this general area, except for Leonard, but he's by Ulrika, and I guess that makes sense. And then we got the regular Archer Meister. So like it's not perfect, but people are saying, well, because most of the Meisters are surrounded by him, maybe he's also going to be a Meister. So if he's a new Meister, that might mean a new vocation. Maybe. I really hope so. Because the vocation list in Dragon's Dogma 2 is weird. It was so nice and cut and uniform in Dragon's Dogma 1, and it just makes no sense in Dragon's Dogma 2. But mostly, I just want the monk to be in the game. If this guy is the monk meister, I will be the happiest boy on the planet. If you don't know, monk was a vocation that was planned for Dragon's Dogma 1. So when the ball started rolling on Dragon's Dogma 2, I was like, oh yeah, dude, we're going to get a monk. We have to. And we did not. So it would be nice if they could make up for that. All right. And then revisiting the note. Okay. The note says, sightings of griffins flying in from the northern region of Oregon have been confirmed. Now, importantly, when I was like lying in bed, still half asleep, and I was first reading this, because the lower half of the letter is like closer, it was easier to read. So the first words that I read were "been confirmed," and like my heart started beating. I was like, "What do you mean? What's been confirmed?" And of course, it's nothing as like concrete as that, but it is still really important. And first of all, it does really say this. I've seen a lot of people be like, "That doesn't say anything. You can't even read it. Nobody knows what this note says." We actually do. It is like without a doubt exactly what this note says. This is not some goofy "my dad works at Capcom" Reddit leak. This is this is very real. I made a whole video on in-game texts. There are 4 that are like already deciphered, able to be read. There's the print version of the common text. There's the cursive version of the common text. There's the print version of the magic text, and there's the cursive version of the magic text. So 4 texts in total. This is the print version of the common text in game. I literally have the font for this. I put it in all of my thumbnails. Well, most of them. I put it in most of my thumbnails. So this is real. It really, really says what people are saying it says with 100% certainty. But so what? What does it matter that griffins are flying in from the northern region of Oregon? 3 things with that. Oregon is not a name ever mentioned in the game, meaning this is a totally new region that they had to intentionally add to the setting. Second, the region is specifically stated to be a northern region. And there are at least 2 loading screens in Dragon's Dogma 2 that specifically mention stuff going on in the north. Muracaster just kind of put this together. I don't know if they put it together, but we got it here. So let's look at it. By the way, the loading screens in Dragon's Dogma 2 hold an absurd amount of lore for the game. Like the way you get loading screens, because you don't get them if you have a quest set as priority, because it just gives you the rundown of what that quest is. So the way you get these is you have to make sure you don't have any quests set as priority, And then there's a ton of crazy stuff. You get like artwork back there, you get like different lore dumps, stuff like that. It's really cool. But we got this one here. An abundance of magical energy has been detected on the northern edge of Vermund, though the source is as yet unknown. Okay, so this one is a little iffy, right? Because the source of magical energy is detected on the northern edge of Vermont. So that's probably like right on the border. So that could be a reference to this, or it could not. It could just be like within Vermont and not the new region. But there's stuff going on up north, right? So the second loading screen says the north of the continent is said to be home to an ancient nation, but records of its existence are scarce, and there have been no contact with its people for over a century. Okay, now this one matters significantly more, okay? Because there's no way to misinterpret this. This is the north of the continent. So it's within the continent, it's in the north. It's a northern region, and it's specifically ancient, and nobody's heard from them for over a century. So this nation being stagnant for over a century could also be why the note includes a name of a place that's not anywhere in the game, because people have just stopped thinking about it, right? So it hasn't had any contact in over a century. Nobody talks about it. That's why you never see the new region mentioned in the game. So all that to say, there's already stuff set up in the game for things to happen in the north. Now, third, this note sets up a conflict that needs exploration and resolution. Something is causing the Griffins to leave the northern region and is chasing them into Vermund, which sets up a reason to visit the new region. So we have a new region that is hinted at in the game, and it sets up a reason to go there. So all that is pretty significant. Then finally, we have this medallion thing over here. This one, people point out that this might be something, but it feels the weakest of the three things. So if you like zoom in super close, the pattern of the medallion looks like it matches the seal on the letter. And the seal on the letter is also seen in game on Sir Augustine's letter to Sven. So this might be the official seal of the Vermundian government or something like that. So it might be that this medallion is going to be taken to the new region for diplomatic purposes. If nobody's been there in over a century, we're trying to get buddy-buddy with them, figure out what's going on. Some people have speculated that it might be part of a new currency system in the DLC. Like, it's just the medallion on its own is like the weakest of the things to note here so far. Like if they released this and it didn't have this note and it didn't have this new guy and all it had was this medallion, we would never be able to guess that we're getting a DLC. But the note on its own and the new guy on its own, both of those on their own kind of hint towards a DLC, and we got both of them. So overall, the second anniversary art, like it does reignite hope for a DLC. And this new hope reignites previous DLC speculation, which is really exciting. So let's talk about what we could see in a DLC just from what we already find in the game. Obviously, we got the second anniversary stuff out of the way. All right, stuff we could see in a DLC. Obviously, we're likely to see some new monsters. I made a post a long while back going over just sort of trying to collect a number of monsters that are mentioned in the game but aren't, like, we don't ever get to see them. So obviously, just because a monster is mentioned, that doesn't mean it's going to be in DLC. It doesn't mean they're going to explore it, but it's here, so like there's a chance, you know? So first is a Cerberus, okay? So that you have a Cerberus appear on the tattoo right here, and then on these pillars. You find these pillars in a few different places, but like definitely on the pillars near the Griffin spawn by Trevo Mine. on these pillars, on each side, you have a dog with 3 heads. So, I mean, that looks pretty Cerberus-y, you know? I feel like if we got a Cerberus in the DLC, I would be super stoked. That would be really cool. And then obviously, like it's really hard to miss, but we got Hydra mentioned in specifically the Hydra husk, and also there's like art in the loading screens of a Hydra. So I wouldn't complain about seeing a Hydra return. And this is kind of weird. So they got a bunch of like Bitter Black Isle equipment. A DLC kind of exploring why that is would be really cool. But the Bane Archistaff is an Archistaff infused with the miasma of a dragon that lived on after death, fueled by hatred. Okay, so it doesn't specifically say cursed dragon, but it's talking about the cursed dragon. Interestingly, the cursed dragon is like a product of its environment. So like what happens with a curse, got little lore dump on cursed dragons. It is a defeated dragon whose heart was destroyed, and then it used its remaining magical energy to collect the rift that is in the atmosphere of Bitter Black Isle and make a new makeshift heart. So this is really like setting specific. You would not be able to find a cursed dragon outside of an environment similar to Bitter Black Isle. So like something like obviously Bitter Black Isle is like the world beyond the rift. And then like in the Everfall, that is the world beyond the rift. So it has to be somewhere really rifty where they can like collect the rift and replace their heart. If we're going to see a cursed dragon, we have to see some sort of setting like that. Then there are other dragonkin mentioned. So it's a little dicey because worms are like the term worm is also used just for the dragon. Um so like for the Wormwing cape, it does specifically say that it's made from the wing of an extremely rare draconic species. So this is like we might get more lesser dragons than just like the drakes. I'm hoping at least. The Kindred cape, it literally just says worms, so it doesn't give us anything to think like maybe there's another thing going on here. Like really it's just the Wormwing cape, but it extremely rare draconic species. That means there's more than one type of draconic species, which means maybe they'll expand on that in the DLC. Then, okay, so wyverns are mentioned, specifically by Martin. Um, None save the sovereign can fell the dragon. Perchance you mistook an overgrown wyvern for the bringer of calamity. So it's not actually clear that this idea of a wyvern is the same as like Dragon's Dogma 1. Like he might just be talking about like the difference between a dragon and a wyvern is that wyverns are like more animalistic and less human or whatever. That might be what he's saying, but nonetheless, wyvern mentioned. Please more wyvern. And then sticking with the draconic species thing, we have this lindworm fang. So this is interesting because the lindworm was previously only in Dragon's Dogma Online. It is not something that was ever in the base game. I don't think it was in Dragon's Dogma Quest. It's like just Dragon's Dogma Online. So again, we got worms, we got wyverns, we got lindworms. Hopefully we get more dragon types in a DLC. We'll see. And then okay, there's mentions of devils and demons. Obviously like the Blackwing bow, the Frame blades, however you pronounce it. Um, like I mean, almost all of the Bitter Black Isle exclusive, like the high tier stuff, it has to do with devils. So, and also we got this. This artwork here is actually it was unused in the game for Dark Arisen, and it only shows up in the Dark Arisen design works and in Dragon's Dogma 2. So, again, like if we could expand on like what happened with Bitter Black Isle, like obviously we know what happened up until the end point, but then like how was it actually resolved? We don't actually know that. So if we could get more narrative around Bitter Black Isle, that would be cool. And we got this like Falconian beak, right? So it mentions a Falconian, and it is a uh sapient avian creature of myth. So I don't know what that is, but like maybe we'll see one. Tale of Simmer. Also, it bears the name of a legendary creature said to aid valiant souls in times of crisis. This I'm not gonna lie, this sounds more like just flavor stuff than like an enemy that they intend to add to the game. Okay, God's Beast Scale Coat. We don't know what a God's Beast is. It's literally a fossilized monster that has yet to be identified. So if the God's Beast points to like a new boss kind of creature in a DLC, that would be exciting. Like I want to fight a God's Beast. I don't know what that is, but it sounds super cool. And then we get Strider Greaves. They're said to resemble mythic monster of the East. I don't know, like spoken of in Eastern lands. And then like this is what they look like. And it's like I dude, I don't know what that is. Like what kind of monster is this? So, I mean, whatever kind of monster this guy is, let's add him to the game, I guess. And then the Moon Howl Cape. Okay, anytime the word moon is mentioned, like you gotta raise your eyebrows a little bit. Moon Howl Cape is specifically fashioned from the pelt of a rare cragwool. So and it retains heat like a living beast, keeping the wearer nice and warm. So this would really fit the set if we're going into like a cold area. Um, I could see them adding a new breed of wolf, of course, because you have to add a new saurian, you have to add a new harpy, you have to add a new wolf. Those are our guys. We got to add more of those. I'm sure most people don't want another wolf, but I feel like Dragon's Dogma 2 does really good with the type variants. So I think it could be interesting. But I I would think if any of the previously mentioned monsters are going to make it in, I would bet that we would see a crag wolf. So yeah, out of those monsters, I think the two most likely is probably the crag wolf and then the Cerberus. I think out of everything that I compiled, those are the two most likely to see. Will we actually see those? Oh no. It would be pretty cool though. And then most people, if you've played Dragon's Dogma 2 already, you know about these buried spell seal doors. They're all over the map. Okay, this is Coco. Like spell seal doors all over the place. You obviously cannot get in these. These are blocked off, but you can see the spell seal door behind it. So this is one of those things that it's a hint in the game. It's like, okay, well, they're going to introduce some DLC. We're going to unbury these spell seal doors, and then there are going to be a bunch of new dungeons. Hopefully that is the case. I would like to see the something actually done with these. In Dragon's Dogma 2, they use like little fireflies to indicate like points of interest, and there's at least one in the game where there are like those fireflies to say, "Hey, something's here," and then it's just a buried spell seal door. It's like, okay, so nothing's actually here yet. So these would be a good way to just, I mean, give more content to do. And being locked behind spell seal doors means there'll be like end game dungeons. I know a lot of people complain about the end game. Like the end game of Dragon's Dogma 2 is basically just the Unmoored world. And I mean, the Unmoored world is really, really cool. And it's not actually timed. Like if you just don't rest, you can stay in the Unmoored world forever, but that's not really a good loop. Like you can't loop anything, so like you don't want to just sit in the Unmoored world forever because there's not much to do there, you know. So this could be something to sort of spice up the end game. And then finally, this is going to be something, maybe something a little controversial, multiplayer. Okay, so I know a lot of people are split on this. A lot of people say, we want multiplayer. And then a bunch of other people say, no, that'll ruin the experience. And like, honestly, I think if multiplayer is implemented in a way that it's optional, it's not an issue. So a while ago, some people data mined Dragon's Dogma 2, and they were going through it, and they found some cut content, including a multiplayer mode. You can see right here. Hold on, my Japanese is bad. Multiplayer mode, that multiplayer mode, multiplay mode. That's probably what that is, right? And then in these little brackets, it says Shingetsu no To, which means the New Moon Tower. So we have the multiplayer mode in the New Moon Tower. Now, I am a gorilla, so I don't know anything about data mining. I don't know, like, I can't really tell if this is legit, if this, like, when people data mine, this is, like, really what they see. I don't know how any of this works. But if this is real, then we don't know for sure if this is like cut, or if this is a way of being like, let's add multiplayer. But it's something that people found. So something that's like kind of important when considering multiplayer. Multiplayer does not work because of the setting. Every game is a separate world, and cross-world travel is not possible for humans. That is the lore. The reason Dragon's Dogma Online can have multiplayer is because they changed the rules of the world, and like all that matters to being arisen is being picked by a dragon or whatever. That's not how it works in the base game, by the way. Um, but so you have multiple arisen within the same world, so it doesn't break the lore that way. But so then, in order for us to have multiplayer in like the main continuity, there's sort of two ways around that. One is multiversal constructs. In Dragon's Dogma, we already have a couple of multiversal constructs. Bitter Black Isle is a multiversal construct. It draws in Arisen from every possible world. And then the Everfall is a multiversal construct. It is like there's all sorts of different pawn quotes about how it's like the nexus that links all possible worlds and stuff like that. So the Everfall is a multiversal area. Bitter Black Isle is a multiversal area. If they ever did like a remake of Dark Arisen, and they want to like implement multiplayer, that's like the way, or that's one way they could do it. So then with this, the Shingetsu no To, the New Moon Tower, um, that might be a multiversal construct, unless this whole thing is fake, obviously. But beyond that, you can make a lore-friendly way around the established rule, and there's also actually hints to that in the game. So, we don't get to talk to Phasis very often, but in the Unmoored world, when you follow him to Seafloor Shrine, he gives you some unprompted dialogue, and we see him pondering the link between space and time, and like pondering how to travel between worlds. He's like thinking about the pawns and all that, how to express the link twixt space and time. I will require a greater power, the power of souls. If only I knew how to obtain it. So we have Phasis contemplating the link between space and time, and wondering how pawns travel between the worlds. He's literally trying to figure out how to break the rules to allow travel between worlds. So, uh, shout out Slicer from 2024. This is going to be DLC. I'm freaking sure of it, dude. I hope so. Yeah. So they've set up two different ways that we could have multiplayer if we end up seeing that. So at the end of the day, we won't know for sure what we're going to get until they outright tell us. But the second anniversary art is definitely a good reason to start hoping again. The one thing it gives us for sure is that Dragon's Dogma is not dead. Another reason we know that is because the Arisen Want More shared this job posting for Capcom, for an assistant producer. Asistanto producer. Assistant producer. And it says very specifically, you will be involved in the production work, assistant producer work, of our core title series, such as Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, and Dragon's Dogma. Okay? So, I couldn't find like a date when this was posted, but all the information they use for Capcom is from the 2025 fiscal year. So it's like relatively recent. Like they made this post after the release of Dragon's Dogma 2, and just so you know that he's not lying, Dragon's Dogma, Dragon's Dogma, right there. Monster Hunter, right there. Yeah. So like they're still interested in doing stuff for Dragon's Dogma. Dragon's Dogma is not dead. It's not going anywhere. There is new stuff coming. We just have to be patient and wait for it. In the meantime, I think it's okay to hope again. It is okay to hope. We don't know that we're getting a DLC. It seems like we are. That seems like the most rational. But we know for sure that Dragon's Dogma is not dead. They are doing new stuff with it. Thanks for hanging out. I'll make sure to keep you guys updated on more Dragon's Dogma 2 DLC stuff. Till next we meet, one foot after the next. Come what may.